Hi, hello, it's me, Unkempt Snugglepepper, with another art critique from the art critique subreddit of Reddit. So I have I have named this one Mr. Torso. I think it's accurate. Um, so I'm going to talk about four things. Number one, a few atomical things to fix. Number two, why I selected this green gray background and why I would work from a green or gray background, similar to this one. Which also goes into number three, which is going to be the overall color of the piece, and number four, line dependency. So let's get into it. So, anatomy wise, you did pretty good at capturing the pose, but he twists a little bit more. Is a little bit more at an angle. That goes there. And this comes out just a little bit. There we go. So a few little anatomical things. He's a little bit more twisted than what you had him at. I would make sure in future drawings, if you hold your pencil or stylus all the way out, you can compare the angles that way, as well as the measurements of various body parts. Overall, though, I think you did a pretty good job at capturing a lot of the muscles, and I think because you didn't have him twisted enough, that's why it started to get hard in this area where there are more details, more smaller muscles. So number two, why did I pick a gray-green background? So you had a bright white background, and with that, we're not accurately seeing highlights and shadows. I think you might have tried to be adding highlights and you found you already have gone to your whitest white, but it still doesn't seem bright enough, and that's because you had a white background. When doing a study like this, I would suggest starting with, if you're going to go in black and white, go with a medium gray background, because in the reference photo he is in front of a green background. I went ahead and went with a medium dark gray and then slide the color, the saturation, a little bit towards green. So that's why I would go with a gray background, in this case kind of a grayish green background. Next, let's talk about color. So I know he's a marble statue, and I know he is white, like a pure white, but when doing shadows on a pure white object, you added this highlight, this yellow light that's coming down from the museum lighting, but everything else is still very gray and it's a little too desaturated. So I would take these colors, move them a little bit more towards saturation, and move them more towards blue. That's going to give it a little bit more life, because pure white and pure black do not exist. As we go into the shadows closest to the edge, he's going to be reflecting light and color around him, including this gray-green that is around him that will merge with some of that blue. This is something that you learn more through master studies than life studies. It's something that you can certainly apply to life studies, but it takes time to learn to add that little bit of blue. So here for his chest muscle, we're going to give that a cooler tone. Now he looks a little cooler. Har har har. And that makes this yellow light seem a little less out of place. If you're going to go for it, definitely go for it. Otherwise it seems a little bit random. And if you look, I think if we zoom in, yeah, as we zoom in, that yellow light comes all the way down here. It's just a little bit more diluted. We're not seeing quite as much of it. It goes throughout the body. I would add some more blue tones, and that's going to correct some of your color. Now, I'm going to remove a lot of my marks. Other thing I noticed, the fourth thing, is line dependency. What do I mean by line dependency? I learned this term by watching Istabrak, I think is how she says her YouTube name. She talks a lot about line dependency because we are using lines in this case, here, 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 to define the form. Rather than using lines, the point of shading, shading defines value, value defines the form. So with his pectoral muscle, you are correct in the sense that there is a hard edge. There is a hard edge in his pectoral muscle where this gets to the darkest dark and it's not reflecting a whole lot of light. And then it moves up here. This line does not exist. This line is a hard line between the shadow of the bottom of his pectoral muscle, which is receding away from the light, and his first abdominal muscle, which is sticking out and coming towards the light. And the bottom of it is a bit more, it's a bit darker. Also, by using a gray background, you're going to have a better sense of how dark you can go and how light you can go. And you're not going to run into the issue of, oh my gosh, I've already gotten to my highest highlight. You know, there's still more highlight that I need to go. Having the gray background is going to give you a more accurate portrayal of that. So another note, and this goes kind of with line dependency and color, and that is once you have the gray background, once you have kind of penciled things in and you started removing your lines by adding values, one thing we may notice on the reference is bigger shadows get broken down into smaller shadows. This is a little bit of bonus content. So we have one big shadow coming in through here. And we have a smaller shadow coming in through here. Once you have the gray background, you have outlined kind of where you want everything to be before you start going in and painting all the details. I would take a big brush and work biggest to smallest. And I would put in that overall shadow that's on this side of the body. And I would go in and put more shadow on this side of the body. And that's going to give you a more accurate starting point. Because then you know the pectorals are getting the most light. The stomach's getting a fair amount of light. And the originally comes out a little bit more right there. Whereas his side, where all these cool side muscles are, I need to do more anatomy studies because I'm not great at drawing all those side muscles. So now you have a darker tone to start with. So when you go in and start adding those extra muscles, they're going to seem more cohesive. The piece overall is going to seem more cohesive. Yeah. I think that's it. So we talked about a few anatomy fixes, getting his shoulders a little bit more twisted, which is one of the cool things of marble statues, is how they twist and show the change in muscles. I don't know who modeled for these, but they had to have stood there for a long time. We talked about why we should start with a gray background or use a more appropriate color because things exist within an environment, and using bright light is going to distort where we see highlights. We talked about using color, that nothing is pure white, nothing is pure black. You know, unless you're using your black 2.0 paint, nothing is pure white or pure black. There's a little bit of color in things, and white and gray things tend to reflect color around them. We also talked about line dependency and using value to define the form. So especially like right here. Let's get the right brush. Like right here especially. There's a beautiful change in plane that is much better captured with a change in value than a line. And then for a little bit of extra bonus, we talked about using the overall shadows of the figure and then defining smaller parts of the form. I think this is great. I think you had a great start. I think when you go to do your next piece, keep those things in mind, those overall things. Keep studying, keep doing. I think you're going great places in art. So that's all I have. Have a good one. Well, that's the end of the video. That's all I got. Well, at least for this video. You can check out more videos here. Subscribe to my channel there. Don't forget to hit all the buttons. And I'll see you next time.